Chapter 7 of Tractate Shekalim further qualifies the laws of the collection chests in the temple in regards to the collections of the half-shekel temple tax. The Mishnah says if there were coins found between the collection chest and the temple marked Shekalim, and the chest marked for voluntary communal offerings, we put them in whichever box that they're closer to. If the coins are right in the middle, they go into the voluntary communal offering box. If the coins are between the wood and the frankincense chest, they go to the one that they're closer to. If they're right in the middle, they go to the frankincense box. If the coins were found between the bird pairs and the young Ola birds collection boxes, they go to the one they're closer to. If they're right in the middle, they go to the young Ola birds box. Generally, if coins are found outside of the temple, in between a regular pile of coins and a pile of Ma'aser Sheni type coins, they're a part of whichever they're closer to. If it's right in the middle, it goes to the Ma'aser Sheni pile. Generally, we put it wherever it's closer to, even if it results in leniency, and if it's right in the middle, we go like the more stringent option. The Gemara explains that these cases are possible as the chests were arranged in a circle. The cases are further qualified. New Mishnah, coins found in front of animal dealers in Jerusalem are presumed to be Ma'aser Sheni. Coins found on the Temple Mount are assumed to be non-sacred. If they were found elsewhere in Jerusalem, they're assumed to be non-consecrated, except on pilgrimage holidays when they're assumed to be Ma'aser Sheni. Meat found in the temple courtyard, limbs, are assumed to be from the Ola offering, while slices are assumed to be from Chatas offerings. If the meat was found elsewhere in Jerusalem, it's assumed to be from a Shalamim offering. With both these cases, the meat must have its appearance changed before it can be burnt. Meat found outside of Jerusalem, limbs are assumed to not be kosher, while slices are. If it's the time of a holiday pilgrimage when meat is plentiful, even limbs would be allowed. The Gemara qualifies these cases and also cites some related incidents. This is discussed a bit further. New Mishnah, if an animal is found between Jerusalem and Migdal Eder, or at that distance in any direction, male animals are assumed to be Ola offerings, and female offerings are assumed to be Shlamim offerings, and some say that if the animal is fit for it, it's treated like a Paschal offering, if it's found within 30 days before Passover. Originally, what they did was, when such an animal was brought to the temple, they would take collateral from the finder until he brought libations for the offering, but then people just stopped returning these animals, so they started paying for the libations with communal funds. There were 6 other institutions besides for this. If a non-Jewish person from overseas sent an Ola offering to be brought in the temple, if he paid for libations, we use that, and if he didn't, then we cover the libation payment with the communal funds. Similarly, if a convert passed before he could bring his offerings, if he had funds from his estate designated to pay for the libation, we use that, and if not, the communal funds pay for it. Another institution, some say if a Kohen Gadol passes away, his mincha offering is paid with the communal funds. Others say it was paid for by his heirs. Also, this offering was brought whole. Another institution, the Kohanim could personally benefit from the temple's salt and wood. There was also an institution that there was no me'ilah with the ashes of the para aduma. Lastly, some said that replacements for disqualified bird offerings were paid for by the communal funds. Others said it was paid for by the original guy. The Gemara further qualifies these institutions, and this is all discussed further. And that's the end of Chapter 7. Chapter 8, the final chapter of Tractate Shekalim, discusses some additional laws in regards to finding objects of questionable sanctity and where they fell based on their location. Here specifically in regard to laws of purity and impurity. The Mishnah says spittle found in Jerusalem is presumed to be pure unless it's found in the upper marketplace. Others say that if it's found in the middle of the street, it's assumed to be impure, but not if it's by the sides of the street. And if it's a holiday, it's the opposite, as people in a minority move to the sides of the street. Utensils found in Jerusalem, if found on the way to a mikvah, they're assumed to be impure. If on the way back, they're assumed to be pure, as they use different paths on the way there and back. Others said that they're always assumed to be pure, besides for a basket, shovel, or hammer that are designated for graveyard use. If a knife is found on the 14th of Nisan, you can assume it was immersed and use it to slaughter a paschal offering. If it was the day before, you have to immerse it yourself. You would need to immerse a meat cleaver yourself on either day. If the 14th of Nisan fell out on a Shabbos, and you found the meat cleaver on the 13th, you can assume it was immersed and use it to slaughter. If you found the cleaver on the 15th of Nisan on Passover itself, you can slaughter with it immediately. If the cleaver was found tied to a knife on the 14th on a weekday, you can assume it's like the knife, so both are assumed to have been immersed. The Gemara says that the upper marketplace is unique, either as there was a non-Jewish laundromat there, so there was a concern that the spittle there could have been impure, or that they used to spear wild donkeys up there. There are some related laws on this topic discussed. New Mishnah. If the paroches, one of the curtains of the temple, became impure, they would immerse it in a mikvah in the temple courtyard, and if it was immersed outside, it could be brought in immediately. If it became impure from a main central source of impurity, it would be immersed outside the temple courtyard. It would be spread out to dry in the chel, and had to wait until nightfall to be brought inside. If it was a new curtain, it would be spread out on the roof covering the benches on the Temple Mount to show off its beauty. It describes the curtain, saying it was a handbreadth thick. The intricacy of its weaves and dimensions are listed. It says it had cost 820,000 gold denarim, and 2 were made per year, and it required 300 kohanim to immerse it in a mikveh. The Gemara further describes its weaving. It says that the great cost of the curtains and amounts of kohanim required to immerse it are an exaggeration. New Mishnah. Meat of Kodshe Kachim, most holy offerings, which became impure. Beis Shammai says they should be burnt inside the courtyard unless it became impure from a main central source of impurity outside of the courtyard. Beis Hillel says it should be burnt outside the courtyard unless it became impure from a derived source of impurity inside the temple. Rabbi Eliezer says that if it became impure from a main source of impurity, it should be burned outside the temple, and if it became impure from a derived impurity, it should be burned inside the temple courtyard. Rabbi Akiva just says that it should be burnt wherever it became impure. The Gemara discusses these laws further. New Mishnah. The limbs of the Tamid offering were placed on the lower half of the ramp on the western side. The limbs of the Musaf offering were placed in the lower half of the ramp on the eastern side. The limbs of the Musaf offering on Rosh Chodesh, by a new month, were put on the Karkov of the altar, which will be defined. The mitzvahs of Shekalim and Bikurim, giving your first fruits to the Kohanim, apply only when the temple exists. Unlike the grain tithe, the animal tithe, and the laws of the Bechor offerings. If there's no temple standing at the moment and somebody designated coins as shkalim or fruits as bikurim, they are consecrated, and others disagree. The Gemara says that the karkov of the altar was the strip between the altar horns where the Kohanim would walk. It gives further definition as to many of these offerings. In regards to consecrating coins when there's currently no temple standing, it's not really done, and if you did, the coins should be thrown into the Dead Sea so you don't have any problems of them accidentally being used. It also debates this in regards to the half-shekel offering and the institution that we don't require a convert to set aside coins for a bird pair offering until the temple is rebuilt, and we rule that the consecration of Bikurim does not take effect, but the consecration of Shekalim actually does, so they must be disposed of. And that's the end of chapter 8 and the entire Tractate Shekalim.